Well, hello, and welcome back to another Royal Reviewer video. And today we have some actual breaking news that is actually really interesting. So let's just get straight into this video. Prince Harry and Meghan reveal that they have christened their daughter Princess Lilibet Diana in intimate Californian ceremony, obviously a christening. As the couple's friend Omid Scobie claims King Charles and William were invited but didn't come. Right, so I have an article, I will be reading it, I pre-read it, most of it seems to be all accurate and correct, and there's lots of things that I would like to talk about, points of interest along the way. But oh my goodness, this really is tea-sipping breaking news, so I'm going to take a sip before I even carry on. This tea be hot. Girl. Right, so let's wind back. Wind back. There's been a lot of controversy around the Sussex children's titles and styles ever since Archie was born. Meghan and Harry referenced the kind of titles and styles issue in the Oprah interview, but at the time of birth, under the George V Convention. So under the George V Convention, only grandchildren of a reigning monarch can use HRH and be called Prince or Princess, which is why at the time of Archie and Lilibet's birth, being great-grandchildren of a monarch rather than grandchildren of a monarch, they were not able to use HRH or Prince and Princess. Now the rules were changed under Queen Elizabeth for the direct heirs line. So for Prince William's children, they were able to use HRH and Prince and Princess, but that was not changed or extended to Prince Harry's children at that time, because it was expected that in due course, when Charles became king, that obviously Harry and Meghan could choose at their leisure whether or not they wanted to use or take up the HRH and Prince and Princess titles for their children, which it seems like now that Charles is king, 6 months later, getting close to the coronation, they have opted to use those titles. And the first time we have seen this is obviously at the christening announcement. So let's just read a little bit, then we'll stop and talk a bit more. The Sussexes have obviously chosen to have the baptism in California, not in the UK. However, it has been held for between 20 and 30 friends, including Lilibet's godfather, Tyler Perry. Harry and Meghan did apparently invite Charles and Camilla and the Prince and Princess of Wales. The ceremony was believed to have happened last Friday, but of course they declined the invitation. Lily, as she is called by her parents, was christened by the Bishop of Los Angeles, the Reverend John Taylor, who is the top Anglican minister in California. A statement by the Sussexes referred to the 1-year-old as Princess Lilibet Diana, which is of course the first time that we get to hear about it. And it's the first time that the couple have decided to invoke their right to use Princess for Lilibet since the accession to the throne of King Charles last September. Important to remember that Harry and Meghan cannot, although they technically still have the HRH styles, they cannot actually use them on a day-to-day basis. They still have them but can't use them, which also means, of course, under the George V Convention, that Archie and Lilibet have them too. But it's believed that those titles have been put in what's called abeyance, which is basically on hold, not formally in use. They still have the rights to them, but but Harry and Meghan have chosen not to use them. Now, when the children become 18, they can choose for themselves what they want to be called, if they want to drop those styles and titles, or if they want to continue using them. And in terms of Archie and Lilibet, they, as children, have not been asked not to use their HRHs. So even if Harry and Meghan are still not using theirs, it's believed that Archie and Lilibet could choose to take up theirs. So the monarch will not stand in Harry and Meghan's way. Of course, as I said earlier, Charles, as monarch, could decide to issue new letters patent to change the way that styles, or limit the way that styles and titles are given out. This we have seen in other European monarchies this year, in fact, where a reigning monarch has actually stripped some of her grandchildren's styles and titles, in effect being demoted. And that's caused a bit of a fuss. But it has set a precedence. It has been done. Charles is yet to do that, and personally, I don't think he will. So on the royal family website, she's currently referred to as Miss Lilibet Mountbatten Windsor. That will be expected to be updated. Now, we don't know exactly when that will be. It's also understood that HRH will be held in abeyance, as I've just said, which describes a state of temporary disuse. Harry and Meghan were no longer HRH after Megxit because they quit as working royals. Buckingham Palace currently refers, as I've just said, to Lilibet as Miss Lilibet Mountbatten Windsor, and the website will be updated in due course to refer to Archie and Lilibet as Prince and Princess. The title is in line with the precedent created by letters patent, as I've just said, issued by George V in 1917, which conferred Prince or Princess on male line grandchildren of the sovereign. It is understood that the 21-month-old Lily's title of Princess and Archie's title of Prince will be used in formal settings, but not in everyday conversational use by the couple. I should also stop here to mention, contrary to some rumours going around, just because you are a prince or a princess of the United Kingdom, just because you may or may not have an HRH, it does not entitle you automatically to royal protection. We actually saw that with Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. So roundabout, I think it was roughly before the Cambridge children were actually born. And at that time, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie were 5th and 6th in line to the throne. So very much in a similar position to where Harry sits in the line of succession now. I think he's moved back down to 4th. And they actually, for not being working royals, they lost their royal protection, even though they are an HRH and they are princesses and they call themselves and style themselves as such. So at the time of the late Queen's death, a spokesperson for the Queen pledged to update Archie and Lilibet's names on the website as and when we get information. Now this, to me, picked up on what I've been saying for years now in all of this, that it was Harry and Meghan's choice whether or not to use titles. Even before the Queen's passing, they could have taken up some of Harry's subsidiary titles to have styled Archie, but they chose not to. So very much the palace was basically saying in that statement that it's up to Harry and Meghan, and we will wait until they decide what to do. So the couple's statement referred to Reverend Taylor as the Archbishop of Los Angeles, but he's actually the Bishop of Los Angeles in the Episcopal Church, I hope I've said that correctly, in the US, which is part of the Global Anglican Communion. The Archbishop of Los Angeles is the Most Reverend Jose H. Gomez, who leads the US's largest Catholic community. I am not familiar with, so I hope that is true and correct. Royal journalist Omid Scobie, who is close to the Sussexes, reported that King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, Princess Kate were invited but didn't attend. It is not known whether any of the royal family members were present. People magazine reported that there were between 20 and 30 guests at the event, including, of course, Meghan's mother Doria and Lilibet's godfather Tyler Perry. Harry and Meghan are thought to be keen not to deny their children their birthright, but to allow them the chance to decide for themselves when older whether to drop or keep using the titles. Meghan said in the couple's Oprah interview that Archie, or she indicated that Archie was not given the title of prince because of his race. However, when Archie was born, 7th in line to the throne in 2019, he was too far down the line of succession, which we've just spoke about. So although he was a great-grandchild of the monarch, he was not a firstborn son of a future king, so was not automatically a prince. I think we all get that now. The news comes as it was revealed Camilla's brother-in-law, Simon Elliot, with whom the Queen Consort was very close, passed away last week. So my condolences do go out to Camilla for that. Right. So going back to the Oprah interview, it really makes me think why on earth they made such a big fuss of styles and titles back then when they very clearly knew, and I said this at the time, they very, very, very clearly knew what was going to happen. As soon as Charles eventually became king, um, that would happen. They would have the right to choose for Archie and Lilibet whether or not they got and used those styles and titles. They would be automatically entitled to use them. And I still don't really get why they thought that it was pertinent to attach royal protection to the royal styles and titles, because that clearly, as I've just demonstrated with Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, is not the case. Beatrice and Eugenie were a very interesting case in point, because, as I've said, they were fifth and sixth in line to the throne at the time they lost their royal protection, and they are full-blown princesses of the United Kingdom using those styles and titles from birth, and also previously did actually enjoy royal protection. So that was stripped away from them. So I'm not really entirely sure why Harry and Meghan thought, especially Harry. I mean, you can almost forgive Meghan for not knowing or not understanding, but Harry surely knew the system. You know, he knows what's what, or does he? You know, maybe he didn't know. I mean, which is completely mind-boggling, because for the rest of us, the George V Convention, if you actually read it, it's very simple, clear, and easy to understand. It very clearly dictates what the rules are. As I've said before, Charles does have a choice going forwards whether or not he chooses to limit the royal titles under his own convention, under his own letters patent. Queen Elizabeth, the late Queen, did alter the George V Convention. She issued new letters patent to include William's children. So in turn, the precedent is set that when George has children, that his children will enjoy HRH and Prince or Princess from birth, if indeed he does go on to have children, of course. But Charles could choose to, I don't think he'd backtrack and strip titles, but he could choose in the future to limit them. I mean, he could strip them. He could go the same way as other European monarchies and completely strip. He could even strip Harry of the Prince style and title and HRH. That could technically go. I don't think he will, but it is quite pertinent, the timing of it all. You know, obviously we have the coronation coming up. It definitely goes to show that Harry thinks that having those styles and titles are going to be valuable for Archie and Lilibet, even if they're going to be living most of their lives in the US. So he obviously sees some kind of value to them. Obviously, he sees it as their birthright, their entitlement. But again, just because something is your right doesn't necessarily mean you have to take it up. For example, Princess Anne's children. Now, they automatically did not have a birthright of styles and titles, but it was rumoured that the Queen did actually offer Princess Anne styles and titles for her children. In other words, that she wanted to change the letters patent for Princess Anne's children way back then. But Princess Anne, and I think quite wisely, chose not to accept that offer. And of course, her children, Zara and Peter, have enjoyed a life within the royal family, very close to the centre of it, but also a little bit out of it, enabled to make their own money and not have the amount of scrutiny and criticism that, for example, in comparison, Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice have had, because of course their father, Prince Andrew, chose to give them their birthright titles from when they were born. Beatrice and Eugenie have very much been, I think, between a rock and a hard place. But I think they've been brought up very well. The one thing that Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew have done right in their lives is raise two amazing girls who seem very, very down to earth, who do have regular jobs, who do get on with it, who don't whinge and moan and complain. They've never moaned and complained about losing their royal protection. They've never done, tell-all interviews or written books. They just get on with it. And, when called upon, occasionally, to represent the late Queen, or in the future to represent the King at any point, they will do so willingly, without pay, without expectation of anything. And they are between a rock and a hard place. They will get criticism for this, criticism for that, because of those styles and titles. But I think they carry it very, very well and show that in a modern world, you can have titles as long as you use them in a way that is befitting the honour and dignity that those titles bring. And I think Beatrice and Eugenie have kind of set the precedent for that. Time will only tell whether Archie and Lilibet can kind of live up to that, or even when they turn 18, what they actually choose to do with those titles. Will they carry on with them? Will they let them go and put them completely into abeyance? At the moment, we do not know. So for now, I'm going to leave that story there, that breaking news. If you do have any comments or any questions, please leave a comment in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course, do hit the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.